welcome to Stitch and Witch. I'm gonna try something a little bit different today. I need to turn the heel on this sock, and I don't know how this is gonna go. For one thing, the ball of yarn I have left at the moment is very small. So if I run out of yarn, that'll be the end of the video. The kitten is running around. She is 14 weeks old, I think, now. And she, of course, likes to play with string. So whenever she attacks the yarn, I stop so that she will not associate me knitting with toys. I've done it with all of our cats. It's worked very well. By the time that they are adults, they don't care about me knitting, but she's still pretty young. So we have that going on. In an hour, I have an appointment. So I'm gonna either talk to you for an hour, or talk to you till I run out of yarn, or talk to you till the heel is turned. One of those three things is going to end this video. In the meantime, I'm going to talk about each of the books I've read recently. I'm just going to start at the most recent book and make my way through. We'll see how well I can turn a heel and talk at the same time, and wrangle this kitten who's currently attacking the underside of the table that I have my tripod on. But yeah, so I'm going to go through. This is a lot, I realize. I'm just going to go backwards through the books that I've read from the most recent on back until either I run out of yarn, the heel is turned, or it's time for my appointment. And we'll see how many books I get through. Because I haven't really done any reading videos this year outside of TikTok and Shorts. And what do they call them on Instagram? Reels. So yeah, I'm going to make my way through the list. And we'll just talk about a bunch of books. So the most recent book that I've read, I finished the day before yesterday, or maybe it was yesterday early morning, was The Raven Boys by Maggie, I want to say Stoffvather? I don't know how to say her name. Maggie, The Raven Boys. It's the first in the Raven Cycle series. This was my, I think, fourth attempt to read this book, but I think it was because that my first three attempts were all with the audiobook, and I just was not connecting with the audiobook narrator. Because on this fourth read, this was the physical book, and I loved it. I read it in less than 24 hours, could not put it down, could not think about anything else, lived in the world of the Raven Boys for 24 hours. This book centers around the main character is the daughter of a psychic, kind of lives in a house full of psychics, and that's the dog playing with her bones. Sorry about the noises. I'm not editing this video. It's just going to be stream of consciousness. So whatever happens, happens. Yeah, so she's a psychic, or no, she's not a psychic. Summer Sage, you're very noisy. She tries to take her chew bones up onto her bed to chew on them, and sometimes it takes her a few tries before she manages to do it without dropping them on the floor, because her bones are bigger than she is. Yeah, so the main character is the daughter of a psychic. She lives in a house full of psychics, and one of the things that they do is on a certain night of the year, they go out into this churchyard where all of the dead walk a ley line, and they learn, or all of the soon-to-be dead walk the ley line. That's what it is. And so they take down the names, and that way if anybody comes to them in that year, they can tell them, if they want to know, they can tell them that they're going to die that year. Which is such a deliciously morbid way to start a book. And then one of the dead that year is a young boy that goes to a nearby private school, who the main character, of course, becomes friends with. Oh, and there's this whole thing with her being cursed that whoever her true love is, when she meets him, he's gonna die. So that was the most recent book I read. The one before that was The Wren in the Holly Library by K.A. Lind. This, first of all, fully a cover and title. But, well, not buy, I didn't buy it, I borrowed it from the library, but fully picked it up because of the cover and the title. I absolutely love this cover. I enjoyed the book. I think I gave it 4 stars. It was probably closer to 3 stars. It was one of those that I really liked, but I'm probably not going to think about much of it often, and I'm definitely not going to read it again. And I think, yeah, it's a romantasy heterosexual romantasy, which is not... I've discovered I'm not really the romantasy girl. As much as I love a cozy fantasy and I love romance, I don't think I like them together. I think part of my issue is that so many romantasy books, including this one, center around a young female protagonist and a hundreds of years old male protagonist. And I'm just not into the... This guy is old enough to be your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, but since he's a vampire, he looks like he's 20. I'm just not into that world. There's a couple spicy scenes to take place in a library, which was fun as a book nerd, but it was okay. But if you're into romantasy, it's definitely for you. Especially like hetero romantasy. Definitely for you. Before that, I read Why We Read, A Teacher's Hilarious Memoirs on Books, which has 2 subtitles. The first one is A Teacher's Hilarious Memoir on Books. The other one is, I've got it right here, On Bookworms, Libraries, and Just One More Page Before Lights Out. It's in my stack of books I need to return to the library this week, over here on the couch. I'm actually writing a full review of this for The Rumpus, which will be out. I think the review will be published in October, so, you know, if you follow me on any of my socials, I'll be posting about it when it comes out. But this is, the author also writes for McSweeney's, and it very much has a McSweeney's feel to it. It is a series of essays. It's a series of essays that are really funny about why we read, about like examining the reasons that we read, what makes us readers, what we enjoy, and she covers everything. Fiction, memoirs, children's books, cookbooks. There's an entire essay on cookbooks and how much she enjoys reading cookbooks. And she's really funny. I was actually physically laughing out loud at times. She's a very funny writer. And I had no idea what to expect for it. I picked it up blind. I just saw it on the shelf and the title caught me and I was like, I'll read that. And I'm glad I did, because it was a very light, happy read that kind of makes you feel as a reader like you're not alone in the world, because she gets it. She gets it. Before that, I read an advanced reader's copy of The Pairing by Casey McQuiston, which is out now. I think it came out yesterday, actually. I don't know what today is. Alexa, what's the date today?
Good morning, Katrina. Today is Tuesday, August 6th.
Oh, it comes out today. But probably not the day that I'll have this posted, because it'll probably take me like a week to post this video, because it usually does. I'm pretty sure it came out today, though. But yeah, Casey McQuiston's The Pairing. There's a playlist that Casey created that I think Casey's pronouns are they, them. So I'm going to use they, them because I'm not positive. There's a playlist that Casey posted on Spotify, and you can find it on all of their social accounts. I've seen it linked on their Instagram and I don't know, Threads or Twitter X or one of those. But it's called, what is it called? Horny in Europe, I think is the playlist. I'm a multi-beverage gal. You'll notice that I'm switching between my coffee and my water. But this is a couple who were best friends for their entire lives since they were little kids. Previously to the start of, sorry, that's my dishwasher. Previously to the start of the book, they were going to get married. It's going to beep in a second. They were going to get married. They had planned for their honeymoon or something like that. They had planned to take this food and wine tour through Europe, and then they split up in the airport, and they had like a chance to use the tickets, but they had to wait, or they had to do it within a certain number of years. And this is like the very last possible tour that they could use these tickets for. And the one character decides that they are going to use the tickets, and they show up for the tour to find the other character there. And I'm going to try not to use any pronouns because in a weird way, I cannot even explain, but in a weird way, it would be a spoiler. But they show up to this tour and discover that they're both there. And they make this bet with each other that they can hook up with more people. They're both very sexually free. This is like an entire celebration of hedonism. It is sex and wine and food in all the best ways. So they decide that they're going to make this bet that they can hook up with more people in the amount of time that they're on this tour. And, oh, hey, that's a candle. Yeah, that's how you're going to set your tail on fire. They start the tour. And then, of course, over time, I mean, this is a romance novel. You know what happens, right? They're sleeping with other people, but they're only thinking about each other. They end up together, of course. I mean, that's kind of obvious. That's not even the spoilers. It's funny. It's really funny. It's very engaging. There were some sexual, spicy moments that were not for me. There's things that I do not enjoy that were very graphically described in this book, but it was still really good and still a book that I will think about for a very long time. Yeah, certainly enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. I had a couple of 5. I had 4 5-star books in a row. So that's cool. Because the one I read just before that was How to Read a Book by Monica Wood. Not only was this a 5-star, it's going to be one of my like favorite books of all time 5 stars list. How to Read a Book centers around 3 people. I do not remember any of their names because I never do. I feel like the man might be Frank. I could be wrong. So there's this man whose wife died in a DUI, drunk driving accident. There is the woman who was a 19-year-old girl at the time who was the drunk driver, and second woman who runs the book club at the prison that the first woman is an inmate in. So the prisoner is at the start of the book about to be released. The man is working as kind of like a handyman at a local bookstore that the book club woman, the woman who runs the book club, they call her Bookie. I do remember her nickname, but I don't remember her name. Go figure. The inmates call her Bookie. Bookie goes to the bookstore that this man is the handyman at, which is very clearly Longfellow Books in Portland, Maine, by the way. If you've ever been, the only thing that makes it not Longfellow Books is that Longfellow Books is right across the square from the public library. And when Monica Wood describes them moving between the bookstore and the library, she lengthens that distance. But in every other way, the description of this bookstore is Longfellow Books. It's like, if you've ever been to Longfellow Books, you need only read a couple of sentences about this bookstore and you know that that's where Monica Wood must love to shop. And it's a lovely bookstore. Like, I cannot blame her. It is a lovely bookstore and a great setting for a book. So the woman gets released from prison early on in the book. She is kind of left in an apartment in Portland, Maine, set up by her sister, who no longer wants to speak to her because basically her DUI situation and getting arrested ruined everybody's lives. And she goes to the bookstore on a whim because she's like walking by and there's a cat in the window. And when she's at the bookstore, runs into, of course, the man whose wife she killed in that DUI, and into Bookie, who'd run the book club when she was in prison. So their lives kind of all intersect in a very Maine, like, this is Maine. Maine has a huge physical expanse with very few people, and everybody runs into everybody, and your social circle can be very small in this state and still encompass much of the state. This book has all the Maine feels. Like, it feels like Portland, Maine in every way. You can, like, if you've ever spent time on Congress Street in Portland, Maine, like, she's walking down Congress Street, she's going to Rennie's, she's going to the bookstore, she's going to the public library. Like, you can feel Portland, Maine in this book if you've ever experienced Portland, Maine. But what got me about this book, actually, I feel like I've been talking about this book for a long time now in comparison to the other books, which is another good sign of just how much I enjoyed this book. What got me about this book was actually that it is exploring themes of loss while also being hopeful. Like, yes, you're gonna lose people. You know, when you're an inmate in prison, you become maybe tight friends with certain other people in prison. At least this woman does. And eventually you leave prison and maybe some of them are in there for life, right? So you lose them. You're not gonna be able to see them every day like you have been, right? The main character, the woman Bookie, has lost her husband. The male, whose name I've forgotten, has lost his wife in this DUI. There's a lot of loss in this book. And yet it has this very hopeful, yes, you lose things, but life goes on and you will feel good again thing going on. That's kind of like the theme of it. And there's more loss throughout the book that I don't want to go into because it would be spoilers. But yeah, it has this amazing kind of exploration of what it means to lose people, to lose things, to lose dreams, to lose goals. But life will go on and life will still have joy in it. I cannot talk enough about how much I loved this book. I absolutely just, yeah, read it. I think anybody who's a book lover will love How to Read a Book by Monica Wood. The book I finished before that was Second Night Stand by Karella Stetzwaters. This was just a fun little, I did this one as an audiobook. It was a fun little audiobook. The two main characters are both dancers. They're on a dance competition show for various reasons that I won't give away. It is very important to both of them to win this show. But because they're competing against each other and also happen to have, they had a one-night stand prior to the competition, and now they're in this competition and they both really want to win, but also are falling in love, and also both have personal like qualms about the actual process of falling in love. Yeah, so it's a whole thing. Spicy scenes. Spicy scenes done in a way I'm not sure I've seen spicy scenes done. She describes things in very body positive ways that I have not seen before. And was really happy to see. I think both characters, if I remember correctly, are kind of plus size. It was a couple of weeks ago, so I might be mixing it up with a different book. I've read a lot of romance novels this year. I know one of them was. I'm pretty sure they both were plus size, and it was an interracial relationship. And it's a very body positive, very sapphickly forward book in a lot of ways. Talking about like various spicy toys, like everything. I don't know. It was really fun. Very grown up. Definitely for adults, but very fun. Before that, I read Rebel Girl by Kathleen Hanna. This one I did both as an audiobook and the physical book. I was kind of swapping between them. The audiobook is read by Kathleen Hanna, who has a lovely reading voice. Not a surprise if like you're a fan of her music at all. So Kathleen Hanna is the lead singer of Bikini Kill, which is one of the most prominent feminist punk bands of the 90s. And this was a memoir of her life as a feminist punk musician. I really like memoirs that are really like, this is how I learned to love and respect myself. I think it's a common theme in memoirs. Billy Porter's memoir is very much that. Jonathan Van Ness's memoir is also that. I can't see it quite over the top. It's on the shelf over there, but I couldn't remember what its title was. But Jonathan Van Ness's is very much that. Very much like how to love yourself when the entire world is telling you that you're not lovable. And Rebel Girl has that feel to it too. There's another one. Who is it? My brain is freezing on his name. Nope, can't come up with his name. But there's another one that's like a Broadway actor who wrote a very similar memoir. I just can't think of his name at the moment. But yeah, I really like that. I like that, like, how to love yourself kind of memoir that is really like themes of loving yourself. I've now been talking for 20 minutes straight, so my voice is getting scratchy. And I'm not sure I thought this through because my next appointment right after this is therapy where I will be talking for another hour straight. How far have I gotten on turning the heel? Not far. Okay, that I'll edit out. The book I read right before that was Whale Fall by Elizabeth O'Connor. This is a literary fiction, historical fiction about two girls living on an island off the coast of Wales, just, I want to say between World War I and World War II, like just prior to World War II, if I remember correctly. At the start of the book, a dead whale ends up on the beach. And these two scientists, social scientists, I want to say, are writing a book about the culture of these people that live on this island. Very much a look at gentrification, colonization, sort of, because these two people have zero respect for the actual culture of the island, but really just want to write a sensationalized book, and kind of treat one of the two sisters like crap in the process. There's no kind of about it. They pretty much do. They do. But yeah, it was really good. It was very small. It's a tiny book. I think I've already returned it to the library. But it's a tiny book. It was very small, very short, easy read, and absolutely lovely. It was good for, like, I feel like it would be good for a late summer book, although I read it, I think, in July, but it would be good for like a late summer book. Before that, I read A Secret History of Witches by Louisa Morgan. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I gave this one 5 stars because at the time that I finished it, I was like, oh, that was really good. But now I'm second guessing that because I cannot remember much about it. I know it had to do with Romani people that are witches. Okay, wait, it's coming back to me. Okay, so this girl, in the start, it goes through generations. That's what it is. It goes through generations. It had a feel of like Alice Hoffman. That's why I gave it 5 stars, because I'm such an Alice Hoffman fan, and this very much felt like an Alice Hoffman novel. It starts with these mother and daughter, and the daughter learning that they are witches, that it is a generational thing, that it's passed on genetically, and that they can get killed for it. And they are hiding from a witch finder. And then it just goes through generations of women learning that their mother's witches, learning that they are witches, and how they react to that. And some of these women are horrible. One in particular is just like a really nasty woman. She's a bad mother, she's a bad witch, she's a bad wife, she's bad at everything, she's very mean. And yeah, it just goes through like these generations of witches, learning that they're witches, learning about their magic, learning about their power, learning what they can do with it, and what they can't do with it, while also trying not to get killed for being witches. Yeah, it's a secret history of witches. It's this witchy history being passed on from generation to generation, and very much had a feel of an Alice Hoffman novel, and I very much liked it. If you liked like Blackbird, is it Blackbird House, I think is the Alice Hoffman novel I'm thinking of. I think that's what it is. Also like magic lessons. So the first one in the Practical Magic series. Second to come out, but the first book. Maybe it was the third to come out, but the first book in the chronologically. Yeah, that one. Yeah, I liked it. Now that I can remember what it was, I did really like Secret History of Witches. I borrowed it from the library, but I actually have it on my I have a list of books I want to own. So if I read a book from the library that I know that I'm likely to reread, or that one day I might want to annotate it, I will add it to my list of books I want to own. We're almost halfway through, and I am definitely not halfway through Turning This Heel, so I do not think that I will be finishing Turning This Heel before I run out of time to record. The book I read before that was a graphic novel called If You'll Have Me by Uni. And it was adorable. Two women who are in college, and one of them is, you know, short and kind of chubby and has the confidence of somebody living in our society who is short and chubby. And the other one is very masculine, butch, and has a reputation for being promiscuous. And it's about them falling in love. And the first woman learning to be okay with who she is, and the second woman learning to be okay with taking off her mask and actually like her like showing how she feels, showing her feelings, being open, being unguarded with somebody, and actually expressing her feelings, which she very much struggles with. She's one of those people, and I completely understand this. I am married to somebody like this. One of those people who thinks that other people should know things that are in her head. That mind blindness that comes with neurodivergence. She is one of those people, and she doesn't realize how often her feelings are not coming across. And it causes some complications in their little relationship. But yeah, it was adorable. I loved it. The book I read before that was The Kamigawa Food Detectives by Hisashi Kashiwa. Hope I'm saying, I know Hisashi is how, I know that's how you say that one. I'm not sure on the last name. But this was adorable. So these people are literally food detectives. They run a little restaurant. It's hard to find. It doesn't have a sign. It doesn't have a web presence. It has nothing. And people come to their restaurant both to eat a meal and to get them to find a recipe for them that they miss, that they have some sort of nostalgic connection to. Long descriptions of recipes. If you like seafood, you will love those descriptions. I'm not a seafood fan, so that part I wasn't as into. But long descriptions of recipes. But basically they'll be like, oh, this was the meal that my mother made for me when I was 7, or I had this meal at a restaurant with my grandfather on a trip when I was 10, and this is everything I can remember about it. And then the Kamigawa food detectives go out into the world. They find maybe the original chef, or they find the place where the ingredients came from, or something like that. And they give their customer that meal. Again, that nostalgic meal for them. Very much had the feel of like Before the Coffee Gets Cold, or What You're Looking For Is in the Library, which is still my favorite of all of these cozy Japanese translation books that I've read. What You Were Looking For Is in the Library is still my favorite of them all, but this had that same feel of those two books. And it was adorable and very cozy and very sleepy and calm, and I love that. Before that, I read The Prince and the Dressmaker by Jen Wong. We're not even out of July yet, you guys. I read a lot in July. The Prince and the Dressmaker is a graphic novel. I want to say middle grade, probably, and adorable, about a prince who really likes to wear dresses, and he really likes to dress as a woman or as a female presenting person. And he hires a dressmaker to make his dresses, but this whole dressing as a woman thing is a secret. He wins he goes out to like a club and wins pageants and I don't know, all kinds of stuff, but only as a woman, and he has like a different name and everything. I mean, essentially he's a drag queen, but drag queens are more flamboyant, I feel like. Oh, I don't know. I guess there are some scenes that he's very much a drag queen. Yeah, there's definitely some drag queen scenes. But yeah, so he's going to be the prince, or he's going to be the king, I mean, but he's struggling with how to be the king while he has this secret identity. And also his dressmaker is like a very talented designer who wants to be a famous designer. So there's like another plot line going on with that. It was adorable. Absolutely adorable. Like, I'll probably get it for my niece for Christmas if you're watching this, Kaylee, just so you know. But it was adorable. Before that, I read Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay. I'm going to reread Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay, but I'm going to reread it as the audiobook because I read it as the physical book. I did not love it, but I feel like everybody I've talked to who loved this book loved it as an audiobook. The audiobook is apparently really well done, very dramatized. Like, one person, I think it was Willow Talks Books on her channel, she mentioned that you can hear the pages flip of so it's two plot lines, right? Running simultaneously. One is this film being made in the 90s and the script of that film. And then the other one is more modern day, the main actor from that film talking to producers as they were and directors as they worked to remake the film. And then there's this whole history of like everybody that was involved with the film except for this main actor has all died. So 2, 4, 6. Oh, good. So apparently when you get to the parts with the script, whether you're actually like reading the script of the film, apparently on the audiobook you can hear the pages turn and stuff. I do feel like everybody who loved this book loved the audiobook of it. And I read the physical book. I was really into it for like the first 25%. And then I just got so bored. I kind of knew what was going to happen. And I was right. It was kind of obvious to me that like certain things were going to go down. And I just got so bored with it. But I do want to give it a second chance to see if I can love this book in the audiobook form. So I'm on the waiting list for it from my library right now. We'll see. If you're a Paul Tremblay fan, though, everybody who is a Paul Tremblay fan, this is the first Paul Tremblay book I've ever read, I think. But everybody who is a Paul Tremblay fan is saying this is the best of his books. So if you love his books already, definitely read Horror Movie. Before that, I read The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rick Rubin. This is a nonfiction, just like ruminating on what it means to be a creative person. I did take some quotes from it and put them into my journal. It was interesting. It was very interesting. If you're a creative person who's like struggling with creativity, I feel like it could be really inspiring too. Before that, I read Faybound by Sara El Arifi, which is the first in the Faybound series. I will likely finish the series. I did enjoy this. It was not a 5-star, but I definitely enjoyed it. It is taking place in this like very war-torn fairy world where fairies and humans are like, and I feel like there was another species. This was a while ago. We're getting to like the beginning of July and you can see just how many books I've read in July, right? So yeah, it was a romantasy. The main character is a fairy, I think. There were definitely wizards and magic. Yeah, I'm forgetting. I know that my favorite thing about it was this one character who could tell the future. She was like a seer of some sort. And I loved her. She was very cool. I did this one as an audiobook. And yeah, I enjoyed it. I did not enjoy it enough to call it a 5-star book, but I enjoyed it enough to say that I'll probably continue with the series the next time that I'm in the mood for any sort of fairy romantic-y kind of book. Before that, I read The Magician's Daughter by H.G. Perry. This is a simple little read. A girl who has been raised by a magician on an island. She's never left the island in her entire life. And then he leaves the island to go to the mainland for something, and he doesn't come back. And she has to go into London to, I want to say it was like 1920s London too, because it was like, there were cars and stuff, but there were also horses, and carriages and such, I'm pretty sure. But she goes into London to try to find him and try to figure out what's going on. And discovers instead this entire like conspiracy around who she is and why he's kept her on this island her entire life, and the secrets that he'd been keeping from her. Very sweet though. It was a very sweet little book. It didn't take me long. It was like 2 days. It was an audiobook, and I definitely enjoyed it. One of my favorite reads of the year, the book I read just before that, was Where the Forest Meets the River by Shannon Bowring. Shannon Bowring is a friend of mine from grad school. Her first book, The Road to Dalton, came out, I want to say last year. And this is the sequel to it. Dalton is this little town that she has created in Augusta County, Maine, which if you know anything about Maine, Augusta County is basically Canada. It's the very tippy top of Maine, a very large county with a lot of potatoes, like way more potatoes than people. It's not a highly populated county, especially for the amount of space. It's huge. It's physically huge. Not a lot of people. And Dalton is this tiny town that she has envisioned, and these books kind of center around a bunch of different people in this tiny town. My favorite characters are these two older women. They're like in their 60s, I think, who are lesbians who have been in love for a very long time. Both of their husbands know that they are in love with each other. They kind of have like an unspoken agreement that they will just live their lives as they do. And so they have like a standing date every week, and they spend every day together while their husbands are working or whatever. They're just I love them. I just love these two characters. And then also there's, I feel like I say a lot in this video because I'm not working with a script or a plan. So these two characters, like one of them has a son? Yeah. Who had a wife who in the first book is dealing with a lot of postpartum depression. Some tragedies happen. I don't know, there's a lot going on in these people's lives, but also it's just very cozy and very comforting. It is very like rural Maine feeling, and very real and solid characters, and I thoroughly enjoyed them. I want to know every detail of their lives. On a completely different realm of fiction, before that I read The Heiress by Rachel Hawkins. I vaguely remember some of the plotline, but I did thoroughly enjoy it. The Heiress is rich people problems. That there's like a whole thing with who's gonna inherit something. I don't know. I vaguely remember it, but I did enjoy it. If you like books that are like glimpsing in on rich people's lives. Oh, it's coming back to me. See, this is the way I work. It's coming back to me. So this guy was adopted by the rich woman, right? And he inherited everything. And his cousins are very angry about this because they are blood related to the old money, and he was adopted into the family, but he inherits everything, including the house. And he and his wife decide to go back because of a letter that he receives. They decide to go back to the house. Even though he has all the money, he's left the running of the mansion up to somebody else. He has an accountant who keeps track of all the money. He doesn't do anything with it. See how this, I can't remember, and then it just all comes back to me, right? So they decide to go back to the house after his adopted mother dies. They decide to go back to the house for some reason, something to do with this letter. Lots of twists and turns, lots of unexpected, even right up to the last 2 pages, there is a plot twist. And it's kind of magical the way that she does that. To keep you engaged right up to the last 2 pages like that with plot twists and turns that you don't see coming. Granted, I'm not a reader who looks for the plot twists. I like to be surprised by a plot twist, so I'm not seeking them out in my reading. I'm not ooh, can I find the plot twist? That's not me. But it is very it's still very surprising when the plot twists come out. Before that, I read My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. I have yet to read a book of Grady Hendrix's that I did not love. I have enjoyed them all. My Best Friend's Exorcism was not my favorite of them, but I did enjoy it. 2 girls in high school who, in the 80s, it's got all the 80s feel. And it's the late 80s. It's almost the 90s. Got all that late 80s feel. Very nostalgic feeling for somebody who was born in the 80s. But these two girls in high school, one of them is she's acting weird. She's not acting like herself. And the other one realizes that she is possessed and starts trying to figure out how to perform an exorcism on her, while everyone else is thinking that she's the problem. Yeah, lovely. The Memory Keeper's Daughter by Kim Edwards. Why do I have no memory of this book? I wrote a review. I really enjoyed this book. It was shocking at points, sweet, tender, horrific, beautiful. I don't really know what more to say about it. Worth the read. Why do I have zero memory of this book? I'm reading the description here. Look, okay, I read it in July, apparently. Nope, I read it in May. Families have secrets they hide, even from themselves. It should have been an ordinary birth, the start of an ordinary happy family. But the night Dr. David Henry delivers his wife's twins is a night that will haunt 5 lives forever. For though David's son is a healthy boy, his daughter has Down syndrome. And in a shocking act of betrayal, whose consequences only time will reveal, he tells his wife their daughter died while secretly entrusting her care to a nurse. As grief quietly tears apart David's family, so a little girl must make her own way in the world as best she can. Huh. I'm gonna have to read a book review. Yeah, I don't know. Don't remember this book at all. Let's move on. I don't know how I've forgotten an entire book I read this year. All right, so just before that, I read The Ballad of Jacot Delahaye. Absolutely remember this one and loved it. It looks like we have about 15 minutes left, and I'm almost to... So if you've ever turned a heel with short row heels, I'm almost to the halfway point of doing that process. The Ballad of Jacot de la Haye. Jacot is a historical figure. From what I read online, I didn't know much about her. So after I read the book, I actually looked her up. From what I understand, people in Haiti absolutely believe she existed. There's some question from historians over whether or not she did. She was a pirate from Haiti and also a lesbian. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. All right. I'm on the last row of the first half of Turning the Heel, so there we go. Probably would be done it if I didn't talk with my hands while I was reading. Excuse me. Did I just burp on YouTube? Yes, I did. So Jacot de la Haye was I want to say she was a slave or a servant of some sort who escapes. She's on a ship. She ends up participating in throwing off the captain of the ship, I think. I think they threw him off into the water, or they left him on an island. I don't know. They got rid of him because he was horrible and he was going to get them all killed. She ends up like taking over as captain of this ship, and because she saves all their lives in this moment that their actual captain would have gotten them all killed, she saves all their lives. And also she's in love with this other woman who she also brings onto the ship, and they are living out all your best lesbian pirate dreams. I mean, there's no other way to put it. It was very fun. It was very fun. Very atmospheric. And yeah, loved it. Absolutely loved it. I still can't believe I don't remember The Memory Keeper's Daughter. Like, do I have to go back and reread some of it? Is that the only way I'm going to remember that book? Before Jacot de la Haye, I read The Bloody Chamber by Angela Carter, which is a short story collection, fractured fairy tales. I love a good fractured fairy tales. These are fractured feminist fairy tales. And this book is it's an older book. I want to say the 60s? Let's see. Oh, not as old as I thought. Okay, published in 1990. I must be thinking of something else that I'd read recently that I've been looking at recently that was published earlier than that. I know that I was looking at a collection of short feminist stories that was older. Okay, so The Bloody Chamber and Other Stories by Angela Carter was published in 1990. It is fractured fairy tales where a lot of different anti-feminist tropes are turned on their heads. And yeah, it was really good. There were some stories I enjoyed much more than others. Largely, I think, because there are some fairy tales I'm more familiar with. So reading the fractured fairy tale version of a fairy tale you're really familiar with is very different from reading a fractured fairy tale version of a fairy tale that's a lot of the word fairy in one sentence, of a fairy tale that you don't know as well. Can be a little harder to connect to, right? But yeah, very good. Absolutely. And I love Angela Carter. Was it Burning Down the Boats? Was the first Angela Carter book that I read. And I read that when I was in my undergrad. And just love her. I just love her. Officially at the halfway point on Turning the Heel. Yay! The Twisted Ones by T. Kingfisher. T. Kingfisher is a goddess. I adore everything she writes. I know I've talked about her before on like every social media site, probably here on YouTube too. The first book I read of hers was The Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking, which is a middle grade fantasy. This is in her horror collection. And it was creepy. I actually was on vacation when I read this book. I was in Boothbay, Maine, at a writer's retreat, and I read portions of it like sitting out on the porch in the dark, and it was just deliciously creepy. Loved this book. I wasn't sure at first if I'd be able to read it because the main character is cleaning out her mother's hoarder home. Like that's how it starts. which if anybody knows anything about my past, that touches close to home. But I actually really loved it. I really loved this book, really loved the concept of it. It was deliciously creepy. Probably one of the creepiest books I've ever read. And yeah, really loved it. Before that, I read After Love by Tanya Byrne. I'm going to do like 2 more because I'm running out and I'm getting close to the time of my appointment now. So let's see, what do I got? All right, we'll do 4 more because I really want to talk about Just for the Summer. After Love by Tanya Byrne is about 2 teenage girls fall in love. One of them... Okay, here's the thing about this book. What I'm about to say happens so late in the book that when it finally happened, I realized that you got the entire plot from the blurb. So I think I'm not going to say it because that's what ruined this book for me. Not the actual book. The book is good. I wish I had not read the blurb. So I grabbed this book because I was making a purchase on Pango Books. And whenever I buy a book on Pango, I will go through the seller's other books to see if there's anything else I want. This one jumped out at me. I was like, oh, middle grade, YA maybe. I mean, it's like high school aged. Sapphic romance, absolutely. But in order to read, I'm so torn. I don't want to tell you. I want to say, if you like stories about Grim Reapers, if you like Sapphic romance, and if you like YA, read it. Because if I tell you the plot, you will know the entire book, which I found extremely frustrating myself. So it was adorable. If you like YA Sapphic romance, go for it. Before that, I read The Director's Cut by Carlin Greenwald. This was an audiobook I read or listened to, whatever. Sapphic romance about Hollywood, like a Hollywood-based Sapphic romance. A director, an actor who's very famous, who is becoming a director, falls in love with a college professor. And also kind of has to learn how to center her, not even how to center, has to learn how to openly talk about her feelings around her anxiety. I have never actually read a character in a book that I felt like their anxiety mirrored my own before this book. Her anxiety mirrors my own. She very much has this anxiety that causes her to, like an avoidance anxiety, that rather than face the thing that gives her anxiety, she will just avoid the thing that gives her anxiety, to the point that it actually becomes worse because she's been avoiding it. Paying a certain bill gives you stress, so you avoid paying it, that kind of idea. That's not what she does, but that kind of idea where she learns that she might get into this film festival that would interfere with something she has planned with her girlfriend, and rather than make another plan with her girlfriend right away, she postpones telling her because of her anxiety. I loved it that I could relate to her in that way. Before that, I read the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, another Grady Hendrix, another winner, maybe one of my favorite Grady. I still really liked How to Sell a Haunted House. I think that might be my favorite Grady Hendrix, but this was right up there. A group of women who realize that the man they thought was a pedophile in their neighborhood is actually a vampire, and either way he's preying on children. But yeah, very fun. And then before that, I read Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. Everybody's talking about this book, and I get why. When I can read a heterosexual romance and absolutely fall in love with the characters, because I'm not heterosexual, because Sapphic romance is really more my world and more relatable to me, when it's still something I fall in love with, I know it's a good book, right? And this was a good book. Just for the Summer is lovely. A lot of complicated issues in these people's lives, and how they're exploring those issues. So the answer of where this video is going to end is coming up on us, because I am very far from finishing Turning the Heel, but I'm only 5 minutes away from my therapy appointment, which is when I'm going to end this video. So we're just going to like plow through for these last couple of minutes. My Name is Barbara by Barbara Streisand. I don't know if you've seen this book. I have it in the other room. It's huge. And it's like $45 or something like that. I first looked at it like the week it came out at Barnes & Noble because I was like, oh, Barbara Streisand's memoir comes out this week and I really want it. And then I saw the price tag and I was like, I don't want it that badly. And I knew that eventually I would end up buying a used copy of it, which I did at out of a book bin at my grocery store or whatever. They have like, you know, little book bins that you can grab a book out of for like $2. I think it's $2 for a hardcover, and that's where I found it. But yeah, My Name is Barbara is Barbara Streisand's long-awaited autobiography. Chronicles her entire life. The audiobook actually is the way I would go. If you want to read this book, if you're a Barbara Streisand fan, absolutely the audiobook. She reads it. She sings on it. There's musical clips that you cannot find anywhere else, and it is amazing. Before that, I read Amazing Grace Adams by Fran Littlewood. The plot is escaping me, but I do know that it was very fun. And it's kind of this woman just like fully unhinged, like coming into her own later in life because she's finally gonna stop living by society's rules. That's vaguely what I remember. If you look at the cover, you kind of can get that from the cover art too, because the cover is just this woman with her middle finger held up. But yeah, it was very fun. I read Demon of the Waters by Gregory Gibson, which is a nonfiction about a mutiny on a whale ship. I think it was called the Globe, and why these sailors mutinied. I really like stories of shipwrecks and whale ships. I have for a very long time, and I read a lot of them. I actually have, I guess it's still in the other room, but I just picked up another one the other day. But yeah, I like those books. Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. I did this one as an audiobook and I don't remember a lot of the plot. It was kind of a sweet little sapphic romance, but it didn't really have anything that stood out to me, especially because I read it back in June, so we're getting pretty far back there. But I do remember enjoying it. I don't really remember the plot. Thousand Mornings by Mary Oliver, poetry collection. Every once in a while I just snag a poetry collection and I'll read a poem a day for a couple of, however long it takes me to get through the collection. And Mary Oliver is always good, and always a good one to do that with. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Before that I read Beach Read by Emily Henry. If you are an Emily Henry fan, this is adorable. And yeah, I like Emily Henry's books. I think it's very formulaic, cozy romance. One more minute. The last book. This Was Our Pact by Ryan Andrews, graphic novel about a group of boys who decide that they are going to follow the lanterns. So they live in a town where every year on a certain night they release lanterns onto the river, and they let the lanterns float down the river, and these boys decide to follow the lanterns as long as they can follow them, and along the way end up on some surprisingly magical ventures. So that is, I don't know, a whole bunch of books I've read recently and what I thought of them and what I could remember about them, and I'm a little over halfway through turning the heel on these socks. And go read something fun and go make something fun.